Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Shots Fired podcast. We're your host, Kyle Schoberg, and to my right, Mark Redlich. You just stole my thunder. Welcome back, dude. You were gone last week. We missed you. Did you even watch the show that we did without you?
Why do you ask questions like that, Kyle?
Just, you didn't, did you?
Don't ask questions you already know the answer to.
So, Mark,
Justin, sorry.
Yeah, Mark, you were gone last week. Justin filled in. So I just want to tell everybody real quick. You went out and bought yourself a toy hauler over the summer, right?
Yeah, I did.
With no toys. So technically all you have is a hauler, and you've become one of those guys where you bought the toy hauler, you didn't have any toys to haul it with, but you felt the need to use that thing all the time now. So now you're gone like Mr. Camper almost every weekend.
Yeah.
Which caused you to miss an episode last week. So that's where Mark was, if anybody was wondering.
Yeah. I don't have toys yet, but
you're working on it?
Well, yeah, for sure. But the process was, got to get the toy hauler. Now I got to put something in it. That makes more sense.
I actually always thought that you got the toy first and then you bought the toy hauler to haul the toy with, but it's all good, dude. You do you.
Well, yeah, but where am I going to use it? Like if I get a side-by-side eraser, where am I, like it's just going to sit in my driveway?
No, I mean, I guess that's true, but you do live in an area where...
Yeah, you could ride it. I can drive it right up down my road.
Yeah, you live out in kind of a rural area, so you do have the opportunity to do that kind of stuff. Yeah. But we're glad that you're back. Welcome. Thanks,
Kyle. I noticed, and I have taken notice that your beard's coming in nice. I am trying. It warms my heart to know that.
I am trying. It's taken a little over a month, but
yeah, it looks good. It's a good distance.
We're getting there. It's definitely not as cool as yours, but we're working on it. So I'm pumped to talk about the topic that we have today because this video is going around. It absolutely blows my mind that people are calling for this deputy's head who supposedly slammed his canine down on the ground, and they're wanting animal abuse charges filed against him. People are rioting in the city or county of Riverside over this whole thing. And once again, I think the media has spun this 2-second video into something that it doesn't need to be. There is no context behind it whatsoever. And people that aren't even in the canine community or were never canine handlers and have no idea how training a dog even works are weighing in their opinion. And I just don't think it's fair. And we're going to break it down, talk about it, give our opinion about it from a law enforcement standpoint. But before we do that, we did open up on Instagram. If you wanted to ask us a question and have them answered on the show, that we would do that for you. We did get, quite a bit more questions than I anticipated. So we weeded it down to as many as we felt that we could answer on the show without being super prolonged. So I think we have probably 15 questions, maybe 20 that we'll get to. Mm-hmm. We'll make it quick. And then we're going to dive into this topic because I don't think that anybody's doing this deputy justice and giving him a fair shot at what happened. So Mark, do you want to lead us off with some of the questions?
I do. So the question is, besides cardio, what exercise should I do to prep my body for the police academy? So you're going to be doing a lot of running, but I think a CrossFit style workout is probably the most useful. It's not just the CrossFit workout, but it's just full on body workouts. That's what a lot of departments are going to. So CrossFit style.
Yep. And there's a lot of Instagram pages too that we follow. Mm-hmm. We're friends with Effective Fitness. Got those guys, follow them. Check out and see what they have. They actually offer stuff for cops. Where has Billy been? Well, Billy is still a really good friend of ours.
Yeah.
Billy is a neighbor of mine. We hang out with Billy all the time. I see him constantly. We're always at each other's houses hanging out. So Billy's still around. His job is super, super busy and he's on the go all the time. So it made it very difficult for him to be here all the time and stay committed to it. But way to ruin a surprise because we were going to have a pop-in visit from Billy soon.
Yeah, well, that blows that. Show. Come on. All right, next question. Is Tyler related to the Tiger King? I think they mean it's Kyle. I think that might have been a typo.
Yeah, I thought it was Mark. If you're wondering if Mark is related to the Tiger King, probably.
I might be, but Kyle's backyard looks like the Tiger King's.
Do you guys ever worry about fast food workers, people you've arrested, tanning your food? My answer to that is no. I already know what Mark's answer is.
100%.
I don't care. I go to fast food. You want to spit in my food? Go ahead and spit in my food. I'm still going to eat it.
My answer to that is 100%. Absolutely never eat any place that you can't see them making your food. You have no idea what their interaction has been with law enforcement. Do not do it. It is not worth eating spit or getting sick. steer away from that. Kyle, I wish you would take my advice on that.
I think it makes your immune system stronger.
That's funny.
Can there be a conflict of interest in LEOs giving medical care to suspects if they're injured? Well, we're protected under that, and you do get provided some level of basic first aid. But I mean, I guess unless you acted negligent, then potentially, but you're actually the medical guy.
Yeah. And maybe faking doing medical aid, but I don't believe that I've ever worked around anybody that's ever trained in any type of medical that would ever do that. So no, I don't think there's any difference. All right. This is a good one. Thoughts on AB 742 coming back next year?
Yeah. So it's funny that, this question got asked because we're going to be talking about that this episode with this canine video. So we're going to jump into that. A few tips on writing a solid report that will hold you up in court. In my opinion, just you got to write good reports. You got to get good information at the call, get as much as you can, make it detailed, get all the evidence in there, the elements of the crime, write so that a normal person who's not a cop can read your report and follow it, layman's terms, I guess, and don't overcomplicate it.
No, don't overcomplicate it. And my best advice to that is go to court and spend some time at some prelims and some trials and watch how officers respond to questions, and it will change your opinion of how you write a police report. Most of it's, I don't recall, I don't understand it approximately. Go to court, spend some time, watch multiple officers testify. You will quickly realize who has a good response, who has a good police report, and who does not. You have to spend time in the courts.
And we actually did an episode on report writing, so go back in our videos and find that. Let's see here.
I got one, Kyle, for you. What is the best advice to any new officer right out of the academy? The best advice for any new officer right out of the academy.
Be a good student. Take notes. Don't have an ego. You are going to fail. You are going to mess up. Be okay with that. You should want to operate outside your comfort zone. Make mistakes. Learn. Don't make repeated mistakes. And this job takes a very, very, very long time to have a full grasp of. I make mistakes all the time, and I have 17 years on.
Yep. I can't.
What is your biggest regret about being in law enforcement? Honestly, I don't have any.
My biggest regret is not getting into law enforcement at a younger age. I waited till I was 25 and a half. Graduated when I was 26 from the academy. I wish I would have gone in earlier.
Really?
Yep.
I think that's actually a good age to start. I started at 20. Do you think PD should have access to fitness options, paid gym memberships, PD gyms, etc.? Yes, for sure. I know for at least my agency, we pay you to work out for an hour of your shift, and we have a gym at the station. So yes, 100%.
Yep. I absolutely, truly believe that it should be offered, but not just offered. It should be mandatory. I think fitness and physically, you represent your department, you represent your partners, you represent yourself, your health, longevity. There's no downfalls to working out. It should be mandatory.
Yeah, for sure.
Good question. I like that one.
In backgrounds with both LAPD and LASD. Okay. Any advice to where I should go? Thank you. Well, we've made friends from both agencies, both LAPD and LASD. And, we work here in California, both very reputable professional departments. Look, it doesn't matter. If you go to a sheriff's department, it's going to be vastly different than working at a police department in the sense of you got to work in the jail. There's, rural areas that you're probably going to be responsible for. It's just a different environment. You're also working for an elected official. And so I do think that it is different. I don't work for either one of these, so I don't want to say which one is better. I think they're both reputable, but there's pros and cons to working at a sheriff's department and a police department.
Yeah, I think you have to figure out exactly what your interest is and then see where that interest fits, if it's with the county or with the PD.
Yeah, totally agree.
All right, here's another one for you. How do you become a sharp police officer at a young age, such as 21 or 22? I can't answer that, but Kyle, how do you become a young, sharp officer at that age?
So I started at 20. I don't know. My best answer would probably just be, I just said it. I think you just got to be a good student. Know that some people probably aren't going to respect you and think that you should be there. At least that's what I went through at a really young age. And, they weren't wrong. I think that's probably at 20 years old, probably a little young to be a cop, but obviously it could be done. Be a good student. That's what I would say. Oh, this one's funny. This is from Jorge. What would it take to get Kyle to show up at PJJ at Aries in Roseville on Friday at 1:30 in the afternoon? Well,
this sounds like something that's written on like the inside of a truck stop bathroom, dude.
Yeah, I feel like this is a personal attack. And I just want to throw it out there that I do work Fridays at 1:30. So that is my excuse, albeit it is an excuse.
Dang,
I think it's
either
a good one.
other than that, you'd be there, right?
Of course I would. But shout out to Aries and Roseville if you guys live in the area. They do offer free law enforcement training Fridays.
All right, here's one. Info on SB2 police decertification bill in California. So they're asking for information on that. We've talked about that briefly in the past. Yeah. It's basically meeting certain elements where they can take your post requirement from you and then you can no longer be a police officer. So that's kind of an in-depth conversation. Maybe we can actually talk about that one day.
Yeah, we could probably get an attorney on to talk about that. But I don't actually disagree with that. If you do get fired for certain things in law enforcement, I do feel like you should be decertified, and California is doing that now. Favorite part about running a podcast? Holy smokes. Well, this has been quite the journey. We started out in my kids' playroom at my house, not knowing anything about podcasting or any of this. Hopefully we've stepped it up a little bit since then, but honestly, this journey, and we talk about it a lot when we travel. I mean, we get to travel all over the country just because of this podcast. And I swear every time we go somewhere new, I think we'll be at dinner having a beer or something. We'll be like, man, I can't believe we're getting to do this right now. Yeah. So I think all the cool people we've met, the awesome stories we've heard, just the journey I think that it's taken us on, plus the new, just learning all of this stuff, like it's not just being a cop. It's just learning to run a business. This is a business for us now. I mean,
yeah, it's really grown. It went from being a little hobby hanging out and your girlfriend turning the heater on secretly while we were stuck in a little room sweating us out to
that was funny.
Learning to run a business, hiring people, creating partnerships, expanding, I think is the most interesting, but I think the most rewarding, dude, is got to be when we get emails, texts, Instagram responses that say, thank you for what you do. You helped me on this, or nobody was willing to say what you're willing to say, or any of those responses where it kind of gives you chills where you're like, that is worth the whole journey. All this hard times to coordinate all this is that those responses helping people and touching so many is worth it.
Yeah, totally agree. How do you guys perceive state troopers? That's kind of a loaded question and we don't want to be mean. So no, we love those guys. It's just a different type of job. I mean, I've never done it, so I don't know, but I do have friends that are here, at least in California, who are CHP. Just do things a little different. It's just a different job.
It's a total different job. It's a necessary job and it's just different.
Yep. All right, let's finish up with the one more. Mounted enforcement and some more canines. All right, so I don't exactly know what that means. I'm going to go out on a limb and say maybe more mounted units enforcement, horses, I don't know. And some more canines. Well, you're in luck because we're going to talk about that today. So,
well, let's break that video down.
All right. I wish I had water actually sitting here because on the way here, Mark actually called me and was like, hey, I'm going to stop off at Panda on the way to the studio. Do you want some? I said, yes, please get me a side of chow mein because I like Panda's chow mein. This guy shows up with a little carton about that big of chow mein, which was, I swear, the free sample size. And the noodles were dry. I'm like, did you get any sauce? He's like, no. Well, now my mouth is dry and I need water.
You didn't ask for sauce, and I'm concerned about your health. And you've been getting back into the gym. We've talked to Fit Responder, and I can already tell he's not happy about our lunch choice.
Yeah, probably not. Okay, let's get into this. This is a good topic, and thank you to Chris Boston, my buddy, prior canine handler, for sending this to me. We were actually gonna do a different video. And he sent me this and thought we should talk about it, and I totally agree.
Yep.
Okay, little context of what happened. These deputies in Riverside, California, got dispatched to a call regarding a male possibly walking around with a firearm on his hip. Now, as you watch this video, it's quite evident that this guy's probably a First Amendment auditor. And if you don't know what that is, these guys go around, they basically, I don't want to say taunt, but they elicit response from police to make sure that cops are not violating their rights. And they're looking for some type of response from police during their interaction with them. And oftentimes they get that illicit response from police, and then they post those on YouTube and they make you look stupid, embarrassing, and all that stuff. So I think that's what this guy is. Deputies show up, they get out, they confront him. they have every right to legally detain this guy because, as you can see in the video, it does look like he has some type of like the butt of a gun on his hip. Turns out he's telling him, hey, it's a taser. He's filming the whole time. Like I said, that's what these guys do. And the canine handler shows up, Deputy Shane Day, and gets his dog out of the car while they're interacting with this subject who's being completely compliant. The canine turns, bites Deputy Day in the arm, which then sparks the reaction of the correction, which looks like he's slamming the dog to the ground. Then they're saying he punched the dog in the snout and then puts the dog away. That's what this whole video is about. So I think what this First Amendment auditor was bargaining for was some type of negative reaction from the initial responding deputies. And then ultimately this occurred with the dog, which then, turned this into this huge ordeal. I want to give a little bit of background of the deputy because on our social media page, obviously we have a lot of law enforcement followers. And actually, when his first dog got shot and killed April 14th of this year, we posted about it. So Deputy Day is a well-experienced deputy and canine handler. And in fact, on April 14th of this year, his first dog, well, I shouldn't say it was his first dog, but his dog that he had prior to this dog on this video, was shot and killed during an operation. They were out tracking for a wanted suspect who was a felon. His dog was tracking out in a wooded area, alerted to where the suspect was. The suspect actually fired at the deputies, and you can hear the bullet in the video whizzing past their head on the body camera. And subsequent to that, his canine Rudy, was shot and killed by that suspect. That suspect then fled deeper in the woods, was going towards an occupied house. Deputies and SWAT team surround him. He turns his firearm towards the deputies, fires at them. They then ultimately shoot and kill this guy. So now fast forward, obviously, and this is what the media is not telling people. So this is a new dog that you're seeing in this video. It's a brand new dog for this deputy because now goes through the loss of this first dog, gets a new dog, has to go through canine training, which is several weeks long, if not a couple months long, and bringing and introducing this dog out into the street. It's coming from and I guess I should maybe throw it out there that I used to be a dog handler for 8 years prior to the assignment that I'm doing now. And I have at least a decent amount of experience out on the street, 8 years, worked with a SWAT team, numerous canine apprehensions. So I get what he's going through in this, and that he's got a new dog. He's probably a young little Malinois, which are highly drive type of dogs, right? You've worked extensively around canines.
Yeah.
And I think what happened in this video is, and I could be wrong, but I think what happened is he shows up. He knows that this call is probably kind of poo-bud. He knows nothing's going to really happen with it. And I think he recognizes that. And I personally think he got the dog out of the car to show the dog just real world environment, which is something that we've all done as canine handlers, right? You get out of canine school and now it's time to show the dog real world scenarios because you can only do so much in training and replicate so much in training. But when you're out here in the streets, it's a completely different ball game. So that's what I think happens. I think he gets the dog out. He wants to show the dog a real picture of a real person being held at gunpoint by deputies. These suspects are putting out different types of odors than a decoy at training, right? So that's why we do those types of things, is to just get that so that dog sees that picture and it's taking in all that smell and everything. And you can see in the video, the dog is obviously anxious. He's a new canine. He's probably young and he's bouncing around. He's barking. And what happens is these dogs kind of boil over a little bit and he turns around and he bites him in the arm. Now, if we watch the video, it looks to me like the dog jumps up on his own and the handler, the deputy, goes to correct the dog and place him on the ground. And because the dog jumps up on his own and the handler kind of spins the dog around and it looks like he places him on the ground, it looks like he body slams him. I don't think he does that. I don't even think he body slams him at all. I think the dog jumped up and he went to correct the dog and put him on the ground. And then he just casually walks back to the car, dog's tail's wagging, and he puts him back in the car. He doesn't correct the dog any further than that. So let's watch the video and let's watch it in kind of slow motion. We'll watch the dog's reactions and then you share your thoughts on it coming from you were a cop. You weren't a canine handler, but you worked around dogs a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, hell, you had to medically retire because you got bit by a canine.
Yeah.
Inadvertently, which goes into why it's important that these type of corrections have to happen out on the street with these dogs, because you cannot have a dog who's handler aggressive or wants to bite another officer. So let's watch the video.
All right.
Okay. So you can see the handler's back from these guys. The handler's watching the suspect, and some people are like, well, should you watch the dog? Should you watch the suspect? Look, like there's no black and white answer. Like, yes, your responsibility as a handler is to watch the dog and its behavior, but you need to be paying attention to what's going on as well. So you're having a multitask. Now you can kind of see the dog is getting a little anxious. He's barking. He's getting a little wound up right now. And the moment the deputy goes to put hands on this guy, probably to, obviously detain him in handcuffs, that's, I think, when the dog gets a little bit more amped up. Now, I just want to say in training, there's a lot of this going on in training, right? I mean, in canine training, you're going through all these scenarios over and over and over again, to the tune of, like, when dogs start to hear the clicking of handcuffs, it fires them up because they've been through these types of scenarios so much in training, which is generally followed up with some type of bite, maybe, that it just internally kind of jacks the dog up a little bit.
So what I'm looking at in this is you talked about the training, and I've been involved in canine training with SWAT, but not canine specific only training. So you talked about how over and over and over they train like this. Based on what we're looking at on the camera, the suspect is like in a standing modified, getting ready to get handcuffed. The dog is watching, starting to get amped up. When you train with dogs, is this kind of the point where in training that suspect would break away and start to flee and the dog already know? Like, is the dog prepped right now in a training environment to think that this suspect was going to fight or run?
Yeah, I mean, he very well could, because that exactly what you just said, where, the suspect breaks away, he starts fighting with officers, and then the dog is trained to, apprehend the suspect at that point when, if he were to get physical with the cops. That training scenario is run in training. So maybe the dog was thinking that, who knows, but you can tell that this is a young dog. He's probably fresh out of canine school. The handler's trying to get him exposed to real world environments, and the dog turns around and bites him. I mean, he full mouth bites him in the wrist. You can see it. Now the handler has like a half a second to make a correction on this dog for a change of behavior. You can't wait for that dog to bite you, start walking it back to the car, and then give it some type of correction, because now the dog doesn't even know what he's being corrected for. He thinks he's being corrected for walking back to the car. So I guess in the context of like training, people don't understand how quickly you have to make that type of correction on a dog. And as well as I do, when you're a cop and you're working around a police canine and you're not the handler, I mean, it's intense, right? Like there's always that little type of fear of like, God, I hope the dog doesn't bite me, right? It's barking.
Yeah.
Like it's not your dog. Like you don't know what that dog is going to do. So it's scary. Now, as a handler, you have to make sure that these dogs are listening to what you're telling them to do, and they can't just do what they want to do. I mean, that's not what these dogs are there for. They don't get to make their own decision on what they're doing. And so that's why it's imperative when you have a dog that acts like this, you have to quickly make that correction. Now, I will say this. Does it look good? No, of course it doesn't look good.
Yeah.
What in law enforcement, with any type of use of force or contacting a suspect, like when does that ever really look like? Does it look good pointing your gun at somebody?
No, nothing. Arresting people just never looks good.
It doesn't look good. He didn't egregiously pick this dog up and throw him down on the ground. I think the dog jumps up on his own because he's kind of bouncing around, and the breed of this dog, my first dog that I worked was a Belgian Malinois, which is the same dog that you see here. And I mean, you've worked around them. They're extremely intense, high drive, high energy. I mean, this dog is bouncing all around, and I think he jumps up off his hind legs, towards the deputy. And for all the deputy knows, he doesn't want him to bite him somewhere else. So he kind of spins the dog and goes to put him on the ground.
Yeah. I think one of the things that makes our podcast
unique,
is the fact that we are giving unbiased opinions based off of what we're seeing. And in this case, I love dogs. I'm absolutely terrified of police canines, but I don't see a problem with this. I mean, granted, we do get the ability to watch this slow motion over and over and really analyze it, but so does the media. So does the person that owned this video. And in this case, you're right. He does bite him, but you look at his left hand, he's like holding the collar, like pulls him to like, hey, don't bite me. And then the dog is like jumping. It's like physics. The dog turns at the same time. And it's interesting because if you watch this, there's no like malicious intent. And I do want to just step back for 1 sec and talk about why people are upset and what they're wanting. They're wanting to charge this officer with animal cruelty. And animal cruelty, under the definition in California, it's Penal Code Section 597, subsection A. It's animal cruelty. And basically, in sum, to be guilty of the misdemeanor or felony, it's kind of a wobbler, you have to fulfill these elements: hurt or kill a living animal and act maliciously. So you have to hurt or kill a living animal and act maliciously. In this case, he's not, in my opinion, doing that. So we looked up malicious intent, and that verbiage is a legal notion that may affect different areas of the law, both civil law and criminal law. So when you act or do something with malicious intent or malicious intentions, you are deliberately doing something that will cause injury to another or be detrimental to them. And in this case, based on the elements, and as being a prior police officer and you have to apply the elements of a crime to make arrests. I don't see this. He's not being malicious.
No, I don't think so at all. And I'm going to tell you, I've been bit so many times inadvertently by my dogs, just for this same type of scenario. They're just jacked up and they need to release that aggression. And sometimes they'll release it out on you. Like I said, that has to be corrected. That could have been a whole lot worse. That handler could have corrected that dog a lot worse than he did. And some handlers do that. And I don't necessarily agree with that. There are multiple ways to make a correction on a dog. You've got some trainers who are, I think, a little too heavy-handed. And then you have trainers who, are less heavy-handed and more controlling, utilizing maybe an e-collar or some other type of use of correction. But in this video, I don't think that deputy, I don't think he did anything wrong. And I think what bothers me the most is this guy went from being a hero one day, not too long ago, just back in April. His dog literally saved those deputies' lives, to include his, gets shot and killed. And then now fast forward a couple months later, he's back out on the streets working another dog, and he's getting crucified, and people are literally wanting to hang him and have him prosecuted because he got bit by his own dog and made a simple little correction. That blows my mind.
Yeah, it kind of confuses me too. And we had talked about it. Like, if you put this in perspective of a police officer that's a canine handler versus a normal citizen and their pet dog, what I see here, I take the police officer aspect out of it just to see by comparison, even though police officers are held to a higher standard. But when you talk about what they're talking about, animal cruelty, take the police officer away, it doesn't meet the elements. And if this were to happen on the street, a citizen walking their normal dog, the response would most likely be exactly the same. They'd probably be yelling and screaming a lot more because it hurt and they wouldn't be expecting to be bit. But I don't see anything in this. And it is disheartening to see that this video is going viral for the wrong interaction, because what nobody else is really focusing on is what these deputies did really well. They responded to a call with someone that looked like they had a gun on their hip. They were absolutely professional. They were confronted with First Amendment auditors, and that's what they're called. That's what the First Amendment auditors are doing. You kind of hit on it, Kyle, but they're out there doing this to grab police officers' attention and suck them into what they are trying to pose is, are the officers going to do their job? Do they know what the their capabilities are, the penal. I'm drawing a blank on all this, but
legally, they do that to see if the officers legally know what they can and can't do.
If they're going to follow the Constitution, if they're going to be biased, if they're going to just they're basically testing these officers to see if they know what they're doing. And in this case, these officers were professional. They handled it well. They listened to them. They were respectful during all of this. And then in the back corner, I believe that this handler is exposing this dog to a new environment, recently out of training, and you have to expose the dog to this environment to get them used to it, to acclimate. You would do that to any brand new dog that you got that's a pet. You take them for walks by stores, you let people pet them, you take them to the dog park because they get excited the first time. And then, like you said, you have to correct that. And if I was the officer in front of that dog, my thought would be, I hope that dog doesn't continue to bite the handler, where it's going to divert the suspect's attention now and then the officers. And in this case, I don't see a problem with any of the police officers' interactions.
Yeah, and the other thing to point out too is these dogs are bred for this. This is not your average poodle or golden retriever where you can treat that type of dog like that. Where that type of dog is probably going to piss itself and shut down. Like, that's not the types of dogs that we use in the military and policing. These dogs are bred for this. Now, I would also argue being bit by a dog hurts a lot. And any person's natural reaction getting bit by a dog is to get away from the pain. So the handler's no different than the suspect getting bit. I mean, when you get bit by your own dog, it effing hurts. I got scars all over me. His natural reaction is to pull back and, kind of get that dog away from him. Now, there needs to be follow-up training, obviously, with the dog and his handler aggression, but that's designed to happen in a training environment so that this type of behavior from the dog doesn't continue.
I would also argue, Kyle, that this canine handler is probably much more experienced, because I don't think you mentioned it before, but prior to him losing his other dog, he had gone to the Police Olympics for dog. Like, can you explain what that is?
He won first place in the Las Vegas canine trials, which is a huge deal. I mean, I've competed in canine trials and I did horrible. So I know how hard these trials are, and to get these dogs dialed in to be able to win first place at a huge trial like that, I mean, kudos to him. And it's unfortunate that literally, I think it was a week or not very long after that trial is when his canine was shot and killed. So this guy's a seasoned guy. He's been around the block.
He probably puts his heart and soul into training to get to that where you're competing and winning. He's not just putting his 10 hours in a day at work. He's training much more than that.
Yeah, I'll tell you right now, to win a canine trial, especially at that level, I mean, it is not just going to your department training days, putting in your 10-hour trainings, going home, throwing the dog up, and then never doing any follow-up training after that. No, it's a ton of work. It's a ton of follow-up training. It's every day. Like every day, multiple times a day, interacting with these dogs, training, putting in the work. It is constant. And to be a handler, even if you don't want to be a guy that competes in canine trials and get trophies and all that, that's fine. I was never really that guy. I just really wanted a really good street dog, which I ran 2 dogs. I wasn't much of a trial guy. But I will say being a dog handler is one of the most, if not the most challenging job in policing. You're dealing with an animal that has a brain of its own, that is trained to bite, who is very high drive. Managing that, plus all the other officers around you, plus the suspect, I mean, dude, it's a lot. I can't even describe it to you. For those of you listening that are canine handlers, you get it. You know what I'm saying. It is also the most rewarding job, getting to work with these animals, watching them perform, save not only cops' lives, but citizens' lives. I mean, they save suspects' lives. There is nothing to me more rewarding out there than being a canine handler. I miss it every day. It was something that honestly I never even thought I would get out of. Other opportunities came my way, but when I leave this job, I can promise you, looking back, my canine days were the fun is probably going to be the most funnest times in my career.
I think I'll end on saying that these officers, deputies, the canine handler were professional. It's disheartening to see that the media is attacking this. I don't like that about it. But one thing that I do appreciate about our podcast is that, and if you listen to us, that we are unbiased. And if we truly believe something was wrong, we would point it out. If we didn't like something, we would say we didn't like that, or it's not right, or it's illegal or something. But in this case, I just don't see anything wrong with it. And I wish this canine handler the best.
Yeah. I don't think these charges are going to stick even if they decide to charge him with it. I don't even know, but I don't think it's going to go anywhere. I don't think these charges will stick. And, hopefully this will be water under the bridge. And I think it's just another way to attack cops, and even more so canine handlers in California. So I guess we don't need to belabor it. It's a very short video, but it gained so much attention that I think we felt like nobody is doing this guy justice to even explain what is going on in this video and why we even got to this point. Hopefully, I think we provided a little bit of clarity into that. But like you said, man, I just think it's sad. And we are unbiased. And we've done plenty of videos where cops, I think, do make the wrong decision. And we don't hesitate to point it out. And it's not Monday morning quarterbacking. We're not out there, nitpicking at other cops. But, you talk about it a lot in debriefing. It's like, if you don't debrief some of this stuff and point out what went wrong, well, then how are we ever going to learn?
All right, drop a comment in the section below. Let us know what your thoughts are, if this deputy should be charged with animal cruelty, or overall thoughts about that. Please go to savagetraininggroup.com, get signed up for the patrol survival tactics that Kyle and I have to offer. Also, look through their catalog. They have multiple different classes that are being offered across the country. And go to TACOPSTacticalConference.com, get signed up for one of their 3 conferences. Kyle and I will see you there.
Later, everybody. We'll see you guys on the next video. Peace.
Yeah.